Okay, welcome to the City of Saratoga Springs City Council meeting, Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. Started at 5:30. We're getting going with the oath of office this evening for our newly elected members of the council. So we'll do the oath of office for newly elected city council members, Chris Porter, then Ryan Podeska, and Chris Karn. And Cindy, I believe, are you swearing them in? Okay. Do you want to, we'll have Chris Porter. Yep. Sure.
Do you want me to face that way? Okay, repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Chris Porter,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Okay, can you do that again, but smile? Just like, look at her and look at her and smile. So, I just have a really nice happy picture. Thank you. And get ready.
Councilman Podeska.
You don't have to. Just if I can get one of you smile.
Okay. I state your name,
I, Ryan Podeska,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge my duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Thank you.
I state your name,
I, Chris Karn,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Okay, that's always good. We appreciate the families that came out to support these council members. Some of you are veterans, some of you are new to supporting a council member, but it does take time to do that. So when a council member's up here, it's their families that are also involved that make the city run and make things happen. So we appreciate the families that are here to support these individuals as they start their newly elected terms. Okay, we will move on to the policy meeting. Call to order. We have Councilman Podeska, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Porter, and Councilman Karn. We have a quorum. Councilman McComber, will you lead us in our invocation? And Councilman Karn, will you lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
Our dear and gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the many blessings that Thou hast given us. We're thankful for the opportunity to be here this evening as we welcome 3 members of the City Council for the City of Saratoga Springs. We're thankful for their willingness to serve, and we're really thankful for their families, as the Mayor stated. Heavenly Father, we are also grateful for the opportunity we have to participate in the governing of this amazing city in which we get to call home. We ask Thou bless us as we make these decisions and we look at the future of the city, that we'll be able to make decisions that benefit the city now and into the future. Heavenly Father, we also ask a special blessing on all those in the city that may be serving, whether in the military or in our police and fire, that they will know of our love and our support, and we appreciate their efforts in protecting and securing the health and safety of our lives. Heavenly Father, we ask these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Will the audience please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on this agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetitive comments, and please be respectful in your comments. Councilman Wilden?
I would just like to say I've been waiting 6 years to make this motion. I would move that if your name is Shelley Bartz, your comments must be limited to 10 seconds or less. 6 years, I finally could do it. So. That's not a real motion for, anyway. I'm sorry.
We'll open up the public input.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and congratulations, council members. Just one comment, it's actually not on the agenda item, it got taken off apparently since last time I looked at the agenda, but on the business item that you were going to discuss on the general plan amendment and the rezone north of, off of Redwood Road, one of the things that I want to make sure that didn't get missed is when you see that concept plan and when you see that come through, there was a trail that should have been put in along the canal, Utah Lake Distributing Canal, on the east side of that project, which would have been contiguous to the trail where it ends right now behind those storage units and will eventually be all along that whole canal. Another item goes along with that is that it is part of the master trails and plan that is currently the governing trails plan. However, on the one that's being updated right now, that was actually missed. So that'll be something that'll need to be put back on, is have that trail put back onto that plan before it's actually approved. That's my only comment. Thank you.
I knew you could say it.
Any other public input at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public input. Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, just in response to that comment, the item you had was a rezone on road. That was pulled off because we're still working on a development agreement with the applicant, and that trail we are putting that trail in the development agreement to make sure that gets put in and installed.
Perfect, thank you. TSSD, Mark? Yes. Perfect. Mark wanted to start the year out talking sewer.
Question this, Mayor. How much time do you want me to take?
Whatever you
3
need.
minutes, 10 minutes?
Sure.
Sure, that sounds good. 3, Richard.
3.
I know.
Okay.
No, we're just gonna mark that 20 minutes. 2 minutes?
Mark's motioning for 3.
First of all, I wanted to. My name is, for the record, Richard Mickelson. I'm the Timpanogos Special Service District Manager. Thank you for letting me come and present for you today. First of all, I'll give you an introduction. I've been there at Timpanogos now for about 1.5 years. I come from other service districts. I've worked for Central Weber, Brigham City, and Provo. So this is my beginning my 20th year in the business. Previous to that, my background is in math and chemistry and doing research. So that's me. And as you know, this is your service district and the sewer business, and we start off with your wastewater that comes to us through a collection system right here. You don't recognize that? Yeah. No licking. No licking. And then we remove about 97% of that and return the water to Utah Lake, and it looks like this. And the difference is, this is what drinking water looks like. And you can see that it's pretty clean. We do a really good job. And so for the last 10 years, Timpanogos has met all the requirements and passed all requirements set forth by the state of Utah. And that's who regulates and governs us. And so we meet all the requirements that they set forth. There was some potential changes that are coming down the line. One of those is phosphorus. As you know, you've seen some harmful algal blooms out of Utah Lake. So that's kind of coming to the forefront. One thing they want to do is cut down on the phosphorus that's going into the lake, in the hope if you remove the nutrients that you'll minimize the harmful algal blooms. So Timpanogos is required to hit that by 2023. This last year, we had a value of 1.1 for phosphorus, so we're just 0.1 off of that. So we're really close to hitting that value. But there's approximately about $1.5 million that is being put towards research of Utah Lake. How clean does clean need to be? That's the question I keep asking. I sit on a panel of 1 out of 16 members that sit on the steering committee that's governing that $1.5 million to determine how clean this water needs to be going into Utah Lake. Part of that comes from this is as we pull the nice fresh ball of solids, we treat that as well. That goes through the process, and each one of you generate about 1 pound of this a day, and we process for 200,000 people. So that's approximately 100 tons a day of this material that we have got to process and get rid of. In the past, what we've been able to do is compost it. So this material right here composts this, which reduces this size down by about half or less. That process is ending this year. So starting January 1, we have to have a different process to do this. So we've been able to acquire some contracts with landfills to send this to the landfills. As you know, we've been accepting green waste at our site to help this compost process. That will cease Labor Day weekend. We will no longer be accepting any more green waste as this material. That's one thing I'm trying to let the different cities know, so thank you for letting me come to present to you. Just to kind of let you know what's coming up on the horizon, we have a capital facility plan basically saying we went to all the 10 member cities and got their growth projections, and yours was one of those. As you know, we've had a lot of growth coming out on this side. We've got to get that water out to us so that we can treat it. One thing that we need to know is how big those lines need to be. So we are going to actually this year spend about $4.4 million in upsizing and planning and designing lines that deliver the water to us. And also we have a master plan for our facility. Are we going to need to put a satellite plant or scalping plant that might be on this side over here? That's going to be looked at and evaluated this year, and we'll know that kind of information towards October as that study concludes. I do want to say I appreciate Mark coming and participating on our board. He's very vocal, and he speaks a lot and doesn't let much slide underneath the table. So keeps me on my toes, and he's an expert in his field, and I consider myself an expert on treating the water. So, and anyway, I'm opening it up to any questions. Oh, I handed out that packet. Let me go through that real quickly for you. First of all, the first 2 pages basically show that financially we do a pretty good job at managing the money. The second page is if anything sets in your mind, that second page is what I want to focus on. This right here is the first section shows there that if you have do. We clean the water. One thing that we're trying to do is utilize our resources that we have. At the back end of the plant, we have these old dechlorination ponds. We've had an engineer this last year look and say to us, well, what if we utilize that and create an engineered wetlands? Could we get our phosphorus levels down from 1 even lower? And they've showed us that we can do that in utilizing some other properties that sit just to the east of us. We'll have to acquire that property either through negotiations or trading, so forth. And then we can have an engineered wetlands. Hopefully, we'll get our phosphorus down to less than 0.2 on a regular basis. So we want to utilize our resources that we have in front of us. The last thing I want to touch on is the last page. It's a bit concerning to us in the wastewater business because the Utah guidelines, they're very stringent, and they want to be protective of public health, which we can appreciate. But last year, Utah Lake itself had 39 listings of Utah Lake being warnings out to the public. The EPA put out in May of last year, they put out a paper saying these are what the recommendations for recreational use for a water body. And if we would have used those guidelines, over on the right-hand side, you'll see that we would only had 2 listings instead of the 39. So we're trying to push the state to actually follow the federal guidelines and follow those. So there will be coming out with some recommendations that are close to the federal guidelines, but not exactly. And so we're going to be pushing that they actually follow the federal guidelines. Essentially, there's 4 different matrix that they look at. The state does right now, and the federal guidelines are pointing out that we should follow 2. And we're recommending that they follow the federal guidelines and not make it more stringent. So anyway, with that, I open it up to any questions anybody might have from me.
I just have one. You are using numbers when you're talking about the phosphorus.
Yes.
What are the units on that? Just
1 part per million.
per million. Okay.
Yeah. Is what they want us to be under, and we've got some variances, but essentially we have to meet that by 2023, and we're 0.1 away from that right now, which I hope we'll be able to meet that going forward this year.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Okay, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. It's visual. People like to see visual.
Hey, if you want to leave them on Mark's desk, you're more than welcome.
Yeah. Mark says no, so.
Thank you. Any reports from the council? Okay. Mark?
No, just as a reminder, we've got our retreat this weekend, Thursday night at the police department, Friday all day, and then Saturday again at the police department. So a lot of things we've been preparing for that, and we hope to get you information out tomorrow, just so you can thumb through it. We'll cover all of it as the retreat progresses. But that's all we have for tonight. Thanks.
Councilman Carn?
Mayor, Saturday I attended the Leagues of City and Town training.
We've all been there.
For new council members, my second experience, once for planning and now this. It was a lot of fun. And today I was able to go to a chamber lunch for the State of the City with Dave Johnson. He did a great job representing our city and reporting to that organization.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, public hearing. We have a public hearing for the boundary adjustment with the City of Lehigh. Edge Homes is applicant, Redwood Road.
Mayor and council, if you recall, back in October, we brought this to you. You had to adopt a resolution of intent to adjust a common boundary. State law required that we wait at least 60 days to hold the public hearing, so that's where we're at tonight. And so, just to go through it quickly, it's about 90 acres. It's the property you see there in the blue. Basically sits below the Utah Distributing Lake, or Utah Lake Distributing Canal. The city has looked at it. It's best served by Lehigh. The cost over the lifetime of what the infrastructure cost would be to operate and maintain city facilities on there. We just thought it best that would go to Lehigh. And so that's the proposal by Edge Homes. Lehigh will be doing their same public hearing that you're doing tonight on January 28. They adopted the resolution similar to you as well. Excuse me. The boundary would then be drawn on the east side. There's a 50-foot easement on the Country Mile subdivision plat, which was approved in 1992. The boundary would be along the east side of the canal easement. So basically, everything, the canal and everything would be maintained in Saratoga Springs, and below the canal then would obviously go into Lehigh. Just the plat you see here north is to the left of the screen. So anything you see on the crosshatching, that would then go into Lehigh City. Staff has a recommendation of approval with the findings and conditions, and then of course you have the option to continue or deny the request.
Councilwoman McComber?
I just want to point out that obviously this is land that could have been developed in Saratoga Springs, but the council had talked with the mayor. We talked quite extensively that it wasn't fair to, one, the landowner and also future homeowners to put an undue burden from a tax perspective to service this area. And it's the right thing to do. It's not always the easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do to disconnect this land. You're wondering too, it comes all the way up to Redwood Road. Lehigh does have the land south of that point already along Redwood Road. So you sometimes will see if you're driving down Redwood Road, I don't like signs, the big billboards that say live in Lehigh, even though you're driving through Saratoga Springs. That's why, because that is Lehigh that comes up to Redwood Road there. I think most people like living in Saratoga Springs personally. But so the canal comes all the way up to there. And so that was why we made the decision, because it's better use of tax public funds to do it this way.
Motion? Oh, public hearing, yes. Thanks, Mark. We'll open this up for a public hearing. If there's anybody here for comments on the boundary adjustment, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be respectful in your comments, and please avoid repetitive comments. Anybody here? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion from the council.
I'll move that we approve public hearing item 1, boundary adjustment with the city of Lehigh, Edge Homes applicant, ordinance 20-1 dated today, and including all staff findings and conditions.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call, Councilman Carn.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have business items, the award of contract for Redwood Road Landscaping, Resolution R20-1.
Mayor and council, this is a rebid. I don't know if you guys knew, we didn't get any bids on the second schedule the first time we bid it out. Got a better response this time, and the schedule that was bid the first time, I think it came in at 118, and this time it came in at 78. So we even got a better price on that Grandview portion of that. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions from the council? Okay, I will entertain a motion. Oh, sorry, Councilman McComber.
So when looking at it, there were various options. We could have all from one, one bid, the base bid from one, we can go with another. The recommendation is to go with the one contractor for both the base bid and the alternate bid, item number 1. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Because it got quite confusing in the packet as you're reading through it, because it was like, you can do this option, and you can do this option. And I think that obviously it comes in at the lowest with the both. And so I just wanted to make sure it was very clear. If anyone has reviewed the packet outside of the council or this decision, it got a little confusing, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Thanks for that clarity. Yeah, Brightview was the low bid on both the base bid and the alternate bid.
Mm-hmm. And Brightview has a reputation in the city of doing good work, so. It's
Probably
not
one
like
reason they were able to give us a good price was they're very familiar with the area. They're out here, so
they're across the street. So.
all day long.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve business item number 1, resolution 20-1 dated today,
To Brightview Landscape.
to Brightview Landscaping Development for the $620,392.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Podeska, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Podeska?
Aye.
Karn?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Porter? Aye. Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the Wildflowers Special Assessment Area discussion.
Thank you very much. We had a little bit of a snafu with getting the rest of the wildflower packet to you this week. We apologize for that. We let the applicant know we had a staff member who had an accident, and so they were not able to return to work after that and get things done. She's going to be fine, but we'll bring that back to you as soon as we can. One of the things that we had talked about specifically, though, was bringing back a small item where we could just quickly discuss the special assessment area. And I really just need a go, no-go, whether you want to do a special assessment area for the wildflower area, and if so, to what dollar amount would you be comfortable doing this? And then at some point in the future, we'd bring back a parameters resolution. If you decide you wanted to do it, we'd bring back a parameters resolution, which then triggers a 30-day period for comments and things, and then ultimately, some sort of a debt issuance. And so, again, just real quickly, the special assessment area, we would set it up comparable to what we've done with Mount Saratoga, and that means that all of the debt has to be retired off of the parcels before they can be recorded and platted. And so the purpose of this is just to make sure that the debt is not passing on to the end user. It probably is getting rolled up in mortgages and things of that nature, but to make it very clear and clean, we would be putting the property, we'd need to pledge a certain amount of property, and then prior to any subdivision of that property, they would need to have that bond cleared off of that property. I believe in Mount Saratoga, it took about 2.5, 3 years to retire all of their debt. This would be something similar to that as the land takes down. The applicant originally was asking for about $18 million. We went through and felt like maybe 14 million of those 14 million would be projects that were in our capital facilities plan. That would be the max end. You can certainly do less. It is a decision that you can make. You are not obligated to do this, but if you choose to do it, I just need instruction as to what would be the highest amount that you'd be willing to consider as part of that special assessment area. In essence, they would be using their land as the collateral, and it's a way that they can take the land and collateralize that, and then basically use those bonds to build the infrastructure that then makes it then developable. And so, again, it's a dirt bond, frequently referred to, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. Once you give us direction tonight, we'll come back, though, with a lot more information relative to expected rates, things of that nature. It's going to be a negotiated sale, so we'll have all of that information that we can present back to you.
Perfect. Nate, do you have anything you'd like to add before the council starts discussion?
We hope 50's okay. Beyond that, I appreciate Mark's presentation. The principle behind what we're asking for is really to fund master infrastructure that's already on your capital facility plan. It's been infrastructure that's planned for in your impact fee analysis already. The cost increase is due to the refining of the bids. As we've gotten more detail, the estimates have become more real. I wish costs were going down. They are not. We are of the understanding that this is going to be very well secured by our property, that we are taking a risk of a value of about 3 to 1. So we'll be pledging 3 times the amount of dirt than what we're requesting, and that all of the other stipulations that Mark has come up with in protecting the city we're totally comfortable with, and are not looking to put the city at any more risk. We're shouldering that risk ourselves.
And just to piggyback on that, and thanks for bringing that up, Nate, our obligation would basically be if they missed a payment, it would just be to get foreclosure and turn the property over to the lender. And that would satisfy the debt. And so that's the way we set it up for Mount Saratoga, and we would recommend something similar. Now, it's not completely without risk. I mean, theoretically, if there's a protracted lawsuit or something like that, there could be some risk that we would still have. But again, generally speaking, 100% of the landowners would have to sign off on this. And so it's not like they're entering this agreement and it's a surprise. It's not like it's being overlaid on top of them. They're fully entering this contract arrangement for that opportunity to bond for this infrastructure.
Okay. Councilman Wilden?
Thanks, Mark. You addressed a number of things I was going to say, but and correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't impact the bond rating of the city. There could be some incremental costs if we determine to issue more bonds, but that would be part of my condition is if we decide to do bonds and other things, revenue bonds, sales tax bonds, whatever they may be, that those incremental costs are borne by you guys, the applicants. So we're not held to that. And then it's not secured by any revenue stream from the city. It's not tied to sales tax or general obligations, not collateralized by anything else. And so to me, that means if there is a default on there, there is no, what they call in the bond world, no moral obligation from the city to fill this out or fulfill it out because it doesn't impact our bond rating. So from that standpoint, from a risk standpoint, I'm comfortable moving forward with it, presuming that I didn't say anything inaccurate. Some of the conditions, though, I already mentioned one that I'd like to see in there, that you guys, if we need to bond for whatever reason, that you'd pay the incremental costs associated with that. And I'd want it to be conditional on, before we're moving forward with this, getting the community area, not community area, the community plan. I was thinking DAP, but that's a different, sorry. Community plan approved similar to the MDA. Oh my goodness, I'm getting all my acronyms wrong.
Master Development Agreement. Welcome to government.
Oh, I got it right, MDA, wow. I came from my banking to here. And then as far as the dollar amount, I would look to staff about what they feel like is reasonable based upon your infrastructure you're asking for, so.
Okay. Councilman McComber?
So I appreciate the clarification, and one, it's nice having a risk executive on our council who can help identify potential risk for the city, and I truly appreciate those insights because those were my big concerns, especially the ability to go out and bond additionally. We have some plans, we have some things that we want to do, some exciting things for the city, and I don't want it to negatively impact us by tying up all of our money in a single developer's project. And your last comment is really mine as well. I want a sincere response from staff, what you think is the fair amount for, in terms of partnering on this, because we're setting new precedents. We had, I think it was like 5 or 6 million, I think.
About 6.
6 million with Edge. This is more than doubling that. And so it's setting new bars. And also, to quote maybe somebody who ran for council who's not sitting up here, are we setting it up to help just big developers and not helping the smaller, more boutique type developers? And as a city, that's something that we want to encourage, is having more variety in our city. And so that's a concern, is we're reducing the barrier of participation by participating in this, so making it much easier for these big developers to even become bigger by doing this. And so those are some of my concerns. I just don't want to set a precedent that then other cities are pushed to do similar things, and it spirals. We've talked about this over the years with incomes, with city council even, and mayor stipends. It just all spirals because it keeps growing. Every city does something, it gets more and more and more. And I don't want to be a part of that. So I really want to hear what you think is, I know you said from the 16 or something down to the 18 down to the 14. Do you really feel like that is what we should be doing because of that whole competition? So appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor. Turn the time back over.
Okay. Mark?
So one of the things that's unique about the wildflower special assessment area, there's actually, depending on the kind of infrastructure that we're funding, there's there's a couple different paths that this will go. So for example, on the water side, they're going to be building a booster station and a pond, and that will help on the water side. Even though we've kind of gotten ahead of water in the northern part of the city, this will help the rest of the residents, so there is some value to that as well. And then interestingly enough, there's a sewer line project that's part of this project that will actually open up some of the commercial ground over off of Redwood Road. And so it will have somewhat of an economic benefit to another area as well. So it's not like this is just going for housing. Now, to be totally direct with you, any time we help a developer build infrastructure, we are encouraging growth. And it kind of depends on that spectrum of where would the residents want us to fall on that spectrum of growth? Because, if we're facilitating this, then in theory, we are encouraging growth. Now, that's a very philosophical view of it. The bottom line is it creates redundancies. There's good precedence for it. I would want to go through Nate's numbers again. 14 would be the max that we would recommend based on the analysis we did a few months ago, looking at the projects that he'd identified in the capital projects plan. If he's got sharper numbers, we could certainly take a look at that. It really falls into the spectrum of what would you want to do as a council. Just because we could justify the 14 million based on the projects we looked at, it doesn't necessarily mean that as a city, you should cash fund, help cash fund all those. It really is that spectrum of where would you want it to be. Either number would be fine, and thank you, Councilmember Wilden. The bank qualified discussion, I had that in the staff report, but this would really lean to the bank qualified. If we stay at 10 million or less, then it's bank qualified. If we go over 10 million, it would not be bank qualified. They're paying the cost of issuance, so they're going to reimburse us if there's any impact to us because of the bank qualified status. So again, there's if they're bearing the cost of that, and in the case of the Mount Saratoga SAA, there was about a $150,000 differential they needed to pay to keep us held harmless because of the bank qualified status. And so again, where they're agreeing to cure those deficiencies, it really kind of comes down to where would you want it to be. We've, as a city, since I've been here, never issued more than $10 million in a single issuance, and so 14 would certainly be unprecedented. However, we've seen, if we look down into the future, there's going to be some much larger projects in the future that we're going to have to step out of the BQ range, the bank qualified range, and so, there's not a technical reason not to go above the bank qualified range. It's just, it would be a larger issuance. And so again, it's really a comfort level from your side. We want to make sure though that anything that we do approve is on that capital facilities plan and is something that we feel is infrastructure that will move the city forward in being able to provide infrastructure for our community. And so that's why the $14 million is where we drew the line, and it was based on the earlier numbers that we'd looked at with this project costs. I don't know if there's an updated estimate now for projects at this point.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
So, I mean, a lot of what I have questions on have kind of been touched on. I just want a little more clarification. The bank qualified, I'm trying to remember from when we did the edge, that's a 12-month rolling window? Yes. Okay. Calendar year or, okay. So if it's calendar year, I guess, and this is less for the city, but more so you guys go in eyes wide open. I know there's tons of projects that, we've talked about. Do we see any of those needing bonding?
You can answer that question after Saturday.
I know that. I guarantee you have these bonding. Right. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, we talked about Pony and accelerating Pony. So are we going to need to bond for that? I just want to know.
Yeah, so for those of you.
So they know how much they're going to be on the hook for if they're going to be on the hook for incremental costs.
We'll kind of know the answer to that question after the retreat, because I need you to prioritize that as well. But again, the concept with that is, for example, if we wanted to build Pony now, we would need to do a reimbursement resolution with the county. That way, when the funding becomes available in 2021, we would be getting reimbursed for that.
Right.
So yes, that theoretically could be. The ladder truck For example, the purchase of the ladder truck, which is going to be due in August, if we go above the BQ limit, then that would have a fiscal note attached to it because it would not qualify, for that. So that's $1.2, $1.5 million. It's not quite an enormous number, but all of those little things are part of the risk associated with that.
But I mean, we've also talked about Foothill, and I realize this Saturday we're going to have a bigger discussion. But I mean, that was $16 million.
Foothill is 16.
You guys are going to be on the hook for $16 million worth of incremental costs, not the whole shebang, but like what we're having to pay more because we went over.
And we'll certainly know the answer to all those questions, and then we can actually have Zions Bank model that and let these guys say, hey, that makes sense, we're willing to do it, we're not. We don't want to cast them into, a black hole and us dogpile $50 million worth of projects on it. It might be fun to see Bruce's response, but.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that this is the start of the race. We know there's a bunch of hurdles. And if it turns out that it's going to be prohibitively expensive, we've got plenty of time to deal with it. We just want to get started at the $14 million number. We can deal with everything else later. We just want a yes so we can start the clock.
So I have a second question, and that with the Edge SAA that we did, that was all of that on the capital facilities plan?
Yes. And so the tank that got built on top of the mountain, that was it. It was the transmission lines. It was the pump house to get the water over there. There was a lot of things.
So I know you're trying to get us to a number of, for resolution. I guess I'm willing to participate in anything that benefits outside of the development. You talked about the water and the sewer project benefiting the greater city. If it's sheerly to help out with costs where the service is only providing a service for inside the development, I'm a little more. So I don't know if there's how much of that $14 million that applies to.
That's where this gets kind of squishy because, like, for example, a booster pump station, we're going to put a booster pump on the Welby-Jacob Canal. We're going to build a pond kind of like we built on 400 North, and we'll be taking and building that. That's going to be a fair chunk of cash. Probably what? I can't remember how much that one was. Maybe $4 million or something. Yeah, Nate's rate just cost $5.5. But that technically is required for their project.
Right.
But it will help because it's going to boost pressure through all of Zone 2. And so those are the kinds of things that we can look at.
So something like that, I'm okay to participate. But I mean, if it's like, building a pond that's only benefiting, Zone 4.5 or whatever, like that's something where, I know you guys aren't doing Zone 4.5 anymore, but like.
That's the reason we're only asking for system improvement. So you've already determined the amount of money that we're asking is a system improvement.
Okay.
Project improvement. We're not asking for any project improvement dollars.
And that's pretty much the 18 to 14. And so I think that's probably a pretty good number on the max end. Again, you don't have to go that high, but that would be a really good number for that. Generally speaking, though, what we can do is if you could just give me a number, like let's say you said 14 million, hypothetically you said 14 million, we'd bring back at the future a parameters resolution that would say not to exceed 14 million. And you could still carve that back and say, well, we're only going to do 5 million.
Okay.
So the parameters is just the maximum upper end, and it will be an interest rate not to exceed X percent. And then we'll have those percentages and we'll have the outside parameters, and you can certainly go less, you just can't go more without redoing your notification period, yeah.
Okay, Councilman Carn?
My last question was just answered. So we can do an up to number and we're good.
And then we can also come back, again, once we prioritize our planning for the year, we can share that information with them, and they may say, hey, cost prohibitive, we don't want to do it, we'll hold off, we can do $4 million in year 3 and not impact any of your financing, and that is a good deal for us. I mean, we can work with them on that.
Yeah, so kind of follow-up question on some of those last ones. How do we determine, because it mentioned, system improvements is what the bond money is going for. But let's say another developer comes in next month, they want 14, and it's for system improvements. And so all the developers throughout the whole city start coming in asking for bond this year. How do we say no to them and yes to others? What's the criteria?
This is purely a legislative decision, and it really is the cost-benefit analysis. Is the value of this infrastructure that you're getting worth the city taking the small risk, but there is risk, to issue bonds using their land as the collateralized pledge? And so, again, it's a comfort level. If you wanted to draw a hard line in the sand and say, we're not going to go above the BQ limit for any of these, that puts a cap on it. I can
Is
say
it just kind of like the first come, first serve standpoint then?
It could be. It could be a lot of things. I don't want to give you arbitrary guidance on that, but fundamentally, there are some projects in here that are valuable for the community. No denying that. We certainly would, so it's kind of an interesting philosophy because we're bonding, right? They're going to pay off the bond, and then they're going to actually use that as credits for their impact fees. So they're going to then offset their impact fees with the money that they're using to pay back these bonds. So the alternative is if we don't bond, then they build the improvements and we give them credit for these things anyway with their impact fees. And so it's just a question of do we participate in a funding mechanism that helps them. Now, again, the benefit to them is they get money at a cheaper rate than if they were to go out onto the general market. Right. And it's purely just, it's that simple of an arrangement. If you choose to do it, great. If you choose not to do it, again, that's also your option.
Can I point out, Councilmember Brodusky, that the reason if we get money at a cheaper rate, it means we can sell the houses at a cheaper price, and we all know we have enough housing affordability crisis here. This money doesn't generally go directly into the developer's pocket. It winds up in the lot costs. And if the lot costs are lower, then the housing prices are cheaper.
And Bruce, I'm not going to hold you to this because we've had this conversation. There's a market-driven price.
Always.
But Nate, if your attorney wants to bind you to reduce this, I understand what Bruce is saying, and Bruce is hitting on an important point that is a hot topic in the world. But fundamentally, the cost of development gets put back into the lots. What the economics means for Nate's profitability, I'm not even going to speculate on that. But fundamentally, it could help for that theoretically. If you wanted to lock something in, that's certainly something that you could do from a mandatory affordable. So.
Councilman Wilden?
No, thanks for giving me another chance here, Mayor. It's been brought up, Mark brought it up, and then other members of the council, and I didn't articulate this very well at the very beginning, but why am I willing to do this? It is really for the development of not for the development, I'm sorry, for the benefit of the existing residents. When I make decisions, it's never for doing something just for the sake of development, because there will be, as we're aware of, especially if we tie this to the community plan, there's a lot of open space coming with the city and potential space for, if we decide or others decide down the road, for a cemetery for Camp Williams, the water, sewer, all that infrastructure. And for me, that's why I'm considering it, not just from a risk standpoint, but can be a benefit to the community. And not just future residents on an affordable housing concept, but current residents. My biggest concern is always the current residents, not the future residents. I mean, I am concerned about them, but not as much as the.
Sure.
I'm just going to stop there. But you know what I'm trying to say.
All residents.
All residents, but I care about the people that are here more, who are here right now. So.
Would you like a shovel?
Well, whatever. If they're not in the city and they don't like what I say, don't come. So it's not like they're going to vote for me if they're not here anyway.
So when we come back, we will have a better answer for you as to how those funds will be used, and we'll be able to just specifically target, X million to this project, X million to this project, and then we'll be able to justify how that benefits other members of the community.
I'll entertain a
Motion, Councilman McComber.
I move that we give direction to staff on the wildfire special assessment area discussion to bring back potential parameters resolution not to exceed 14 million, and not to bring back any kind of resolution until after we have the retreat and any other discussion that might come from that retreat if we don't come to a final decision on some of our key projects, so that you're aware of what kind of added costs might arise because of us being held harmless from the negotiations.
Okay. I have a first.
Second.
And I have a second from Councilman Carn. Welcome to the party.
Thank
I
you.
can't vote for this now with him second.
I didn't realize how fast I had to make motions in this room.
Hey, you got to jump on
You
it.
guys are all over this.
Okay, Councilman Podeska.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Carn.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys.
We have the minutes.
How does
I wasn't even there.
past Councilman Barch, Councilwoman Barch
doesn't.
vote on the minutes?
She doesn't.
Okay.
This body votes on them.
She could have had public input. She could have said
Something is wrong.
Okay.
Mayor, I've got a question on this. Kevin, who's not here.
He just walked out.
He says it's fine if you vote.
Okay, thank you.
They don't like what they did.
I know that's the case with planning, but I didn't know about here, so.
Perfect. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So I'm going to move that we approve the minutes of the December 3rd meeting that I was not in attendance at.
You still vote.
You were you were here.
I was here, yes, but not up here.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Carn.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Councilman
Nobody wants to do
Podeska.
minutes. Go for it. Just kidding.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Mark, we're good? No
I want out of here.
closed session.